Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Chit Chat with GFIS National Solutions. Today I have an old friend. I'm going to say now we just worked it out how old we are. And Jamie Martin, Jamie, you had an unbelievable career, but I guess it started at Weber State.
Yeah, it was good to catch up, and thanks for reminding me. It's been 30 years, so that's we are old. We met at Weber State in Utah in the United States, and kind of a great place to play football at the time. I had a lot of fun. Was lucky enough to go on and be able to play in the NFL for a bunch of years. But yeah, I always look back at Weber and the times there and the beautiful mountains, a beautiful place, and just have great memories there of all the people I met and all the experiences I had.
It is an incredible place in terms of, especially coming from Europe. And I had 2 years in Tennessee before I came to you guys up in Utah. And one of my favorite stories that I remember with you guys on a night out, non-sports related, which you might not be able to remember, was Alfred just picked me up. And I didn't realize how big you boys were until Alfred did that. I was like, he's a big old boy, isn't he?
It is funny. Yeah, he's a big dude. He's got some big old arms too. But it is funny, just playing and being around the guys in college and in the NFL and over the years, you kind of forget. And then you run into someone like you just said, you're with a player or whoever, and you run into some quote citizens, some normal people that don't play,
Yeah.
and they're always like, oh my, and I just forget about it. It's kind of like what I've always been around. I'm the small guy. Compared to them, but I guess compared to other people, I'm not so small. So it's a weird perspective that you kind of get used to, but it gives you a lot of appreciation for the things they do, as big as they are, as well as they run and move. It's a different world out there.
Yeah, I was probably trying to be a little bit cheeky to Alfred with my Northeast English accent, which I didn't get away with it on that one. But anyway, when you were at Weber, obviously a great career at Weber and did really well. And was it the Walter Payton Trophy that you won when you were at Weber?
Yeah, so Walter Payton played at that level of college football that they used to call it Division I AA. It's kind of a notch down from the Alabamas and so he was a player at a 1AA school, Jackson State, and they named the award after him, kind of the MVP. It's kind of the Heisman Trophy of that level. Since then, he's got an NFL award named after him also, the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. So I tell people I won the Walter Payton. They don't know which one I'm talking about. So.
It doesn't matter. As long as you mention his name, it's got to be pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah. It was a cool deal. That was a great, talking about Weber again and my experiences there. That was a great honor for not only for me, but for the whole school and for all the people involved, and good recognition and just a way to kind of reward us for our successes.
Yeah, no, it is a beautiful place, and I've been back a couple of times, not as much as I would like over the years, but it is a great place, and I do plan on taking my daughter there as well, which, you've got to show her around. So where did you go from Weber? What was the first step? Because I think it was the LA Rams, or was it St. Louis Rams at the time?
Yeah, so it was the Los Angeles Rams. This is back in 93, something like that. 93, I think, was my rookie year. Los Angeles Rams, and it was kind of cool going there because it's where I grew up. I grew up in Southern California. I grew up going to Rams games and watching them. And I actually went to the first Rams game because they were in Los Angeles. And then they actually were still called the Los Angeles Rams, but they moved to Anaheim, just in Orange County, south of Los Angeles. So I went to the first game in Anaheim Stadium, and then a few years later to be able to play. Uh-oh.
I just lost your picture. It must be the
all right. You back? Okay, good. I'm sorry. Yeah. No, but so it was pretty cool. The first preseason game, I got to go and I walked in the locker room in Anaheim Stadium and saw my jersey hanging in the locker. It was one of those wow moments where I was pretty special.
So let me take you back to that moment, because I work in performance psychology and work with a lot of Olympic athletes, Paralympic athletes, professional sports people. That first moment, I guess your heart was going 150 miles an hour. How did it feel?
Yeah, it's funny because it took me a while to get over being in awe of my situation. Showing up in my first mini camp after I signed with the Rams. I'm looking in the huddle and I see here's Jackie Slater. I don't know how well you know the old names, but he's a Hall of Fame player. I see Chuck Knox, this legendary coach. I'm I'm seeing Flipper Anderson and Henry Ellard. Those are receivers that I grew up watching and idolizing. It took me a while to just kind of calm down and realize that I could kind of do this with them and then kind of be on the same level with them. It was starstruck for a little while.
Yeah, that's understandable. I guess for young athletes, the transition between each level, some people really cope with it really well, and other people really struggle with the transitions from a psychological point of view. And you had such a long career in the NFL. Can't remember how many teams it was. Was it 6, 7 different teams that you had?
Yeah, that's the good news and the bad news. Bad news is I never was a long-term kind of starter for one team. But the good news is we got a chance to live all over the country and play for a lot of different coaches, meet a lot of different players, and just have a lot of different type of experiences than if we would have just stayed in one place the whole career. But yeah, we played in about 7 teams. We played in Jacksonville, St. Louis, LA, obviously, New York Jets, the New Orleans Saints, San Francisco 49ers, Cleveland Browns. So we made a tour of the country a little bit.
Did you not fancy playing for the?
Yeah. Well, of course, anywhere that wants you to play for them and that wants to sign you, you would go, and I would have gladly gone to the Patriots. But we actually played when I was in St. Louis with the Rams. I played in that Super Bowl, Tom Brady's first Super Bowl win. I think it was Super Bowl 36 in New Orleans when they beat us. It was kind of the start of that Patriots dynasty.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because I've always been a Pats fan since on one of the other podcasts when I was talking to the head coach at Durham University, and I interviewed him earlier in the week, and I've spent about 5, 6 years with those guys, and we talked about the Pats, and he was like, "How long have you been a Pats fan?" I was like, "Yeah, that goes back to about maybe 1983, 84, the very first time that we got to watch American football in England." And they were rubbish. And you'll know my years at Weber between 1992. They weren't very good then either.
Yeah.
So I used to walk around and I'm a Pats fan.
Yeah. Well, I respect that. Most people jumped on the bandwagon when they started winning Super Bowls, but I respect the fan that's been there through the bad times.
Well, I think we're back in the bad times as well because I guess Cam's a great quarterback, and this year has just been a difficult period for a lot of people with COVID, hanging around us. But I'd like to think he might stay another year. What do you think?
I think they're going to be fine. I think they had a lot of players. I don't know how many, but I want to say 4 or 5 defensive starters opted out. So they lost half their defense, and and then a new start with a new quarterback. And then I think several other players other than defensive players opted out because of COVID. So they weren't full strength. Belichick's a good coach. He's always going to get it done defensively. They might slip the right quarterback into place and get back rolling again. They're going to be fine.
You fancy coming out of retirement, getting fit and playing a little bit?
Oh my gosh. Is that possible when it's Tom Brady's still doing it. I'm quite a bit older than him though too. So I don't think it's physically, I think I'm out of luck.
Yeah. I love the fact that every time you go, I'm a little bit older than Tom Brady, I'm thinking, that means I am as well. Cause we're probably both some ages. So who's your favorite team, Jamie? Who did you play for that you loved it, and why?
So I enjoyed all the experiences. Were a little different. It was interesting to me, all the different organizations, the way they kind of treated players or treated coaches, or how they did things. I got a chance to play for Sean Payton in New Orleans for the Saints. It was actually the year after Hurricane Katrina, if you remember that. I don't know how much over there you guys follow that stuff, but the city was devastated, and the Superdome where they play their games, just 10 months earlier, 11 months earlier, there was dead bodies on the field. It was used as like a staging area, and people were staying in there, and people were dying in there. Fast forward the next season, and we're playing a game in there, and it was it was an electrifying thing for the city. Just a cool season to be a part of. It was kind of like, it was almost like its own little COVID mini. It was a shutdown. The city was shut down. The city was rebuilding, and we came back. The Saints came back, and kind of gave everybody something to be thankful for, and life was back to normal. So it was a cool season. Sean Payton, awesome coach. I got a chance to work with him for a couple of years. Drew Brees was our quarterback, our starter. So and I was older. I was in my 15th year, so I was pretty comfortable. I wasn't stressed about making the team. I wasn't starstruck anymore. It was just it was a cool experience. And
Yeah,
New Orleans,
I
is a
actually
great
remember.
city.
I remember that time, and I remember seeing the bodies now that they were bringing them in, and it was a horrific time. So, and then I remember that rebuilding of everything and the
Mhm.
amount of money that was spent, and it was phenomenal seeing the transition. And then I guess when we look at sports, it transcends into so many different areas of life, doesn't it? And
Right.
can bring whole nations to life. I guess the Olympics this year, if we get them back on, and rumor from our side is that it's definitely going to go ahead, that is something that will be inspiration for the whole planet.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sports it's like you said, it's just an outlet, a release, way to get away from a reality of the crap that's going on, whether it's politics or the COVID stuff, whatever it is. Get away from your problems and enjoy and root for your team and just kind of relax and have fun.
Yeah. So Jamie, we always talk about levels within levels in sport, and being the second string quarterback or the third string quarterback, which is a phenomenal career, and you've done amazingly well. What do you think the difference was just between not being that starter for a team for a significant period?
Yeah, there's a subtle difference. I learned that quickly. I definitely think I had the talent. I definitely think if circumstances would have been a little different, I, I, I would have done that, could have done that. I also think if circumstances would have been a little different, I never would have got a chance to play in the league at all. So there's a fine line. You look at a guy like Kurt Warner, if you remember that story.
Yeah.
He was bagging groceries, and 2 years after that, he's winning the Super Bowl. And he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he was this close to never getting a chance. I had a couple opportunities in my career that to jump in and be a starter. One year in Jacksonville, Mark Brunell, who was our starter, got hurt. I came in and won a couple games towards the end of the season, and my contract was going to be up. It was all setting up really well to go get a free agent deal somewhere and possibly become a starter. I tore my ACL. It's something like that set me back a year. Then I'd work my way into another position and something else would happen. Sometimes my fault, sometimes not my fault. It drives you crazy thinking, this should have happened differently. This should have happened if you let it. I was thankful to be able to play and do my best. And sometimes that's all you can do, and you let the chips kind of fall where they may.
Yeah, no, it's a good philosophy. I work with a lot of athletes when they're injured. They almost they want to blame the rest of the world for that. And when they win, they don't necessarily want to acknowledge that all the cards happen to be in their hands when they're winning. And I think you've got to see both sides. Sometimes you
Right.
get some injuries and you have to come back from them. Sometimes you're winning and you have to accept the fact that maybe Lady Luck just went with you on that day. It's not always just
Right.
about the talent and the coaching, the team. Sometimes it's variables that we're not in control of.
Right. And that's just it. Year to year in training camp, a lot of people don't realize most NFL players, there's no guarantee you're going to make that team. There's a handful of guys that are pretty much guaranteed, that have the big contracts and the kind of the security. But most guys are just trying to grind it out every day, and hopefully the decision's not up to them. It's kind of out of their hands. And I learned that quickly. To not stress. You can't help but stress sometimes, but I learned to just do my best, and I know what I can do. And if the circumstances are against me and I did everything I could, then there's nothing to be ashamed of, and I can move on with that. And luckily it worked out for me pretty well.
Yeah, I think so. When I look back at that career, and I look at other quarterbacks who don't get the opportunity to even sit on a bench in an NFL team, and when you also look at the statistics about what is the lifespan of an NFL football player, it's very small. So for you to have such a phenomenal career and do what you do is just an amazing thing. And and when I look at you, and I also see Alfred as well and how well he did, and I got to see you guys with your raw talent in your Weaver shirts, throwing some ball around, was just fab to look back and go, yeah, I know these guys, and that's brilliant to see. Question about Amsterdam, because obviously the European League took off. I got a chance to watch a few games myself.
Oh yeah.
What made you decide that I'm gonna go and try that out? was that a family decision, or was that a you and an experience, or was that a football decision?
Well, that's a good question. It really wasn't my decision at all. It was so when that NFL Europe, they called it, when it started back up again in 1995 or whatever the year was, they wanted to give NFL teams incentives to well, they wanted to get NFL players over there. First of all, it was a spring league, which is opposite of the NFL, which is in the fall. So they tried to get some NFL players that weren't starters, that were maybe backups or not playing much. They wanted them over there for some kind of name recognition. It's not the big name, obviously, but it's something. It's guys that are on NFL teams. So they gave incentives to NFL teams. They could allocate up to 5 players to go over to the European League, and they would give them training camp roster exemptions. So meaning they could, for every player they sent over there, they would have one more player in training camp, kind of a bonus to help them through camp and get a look at more players, and if that makes any sense. So the teams had an incentive to send guys over there. This was just when I was in LA with the Rams. They were in the transition of moving to St. Louis. We had a new coach. Rich Brooks was his name. He was the University of Oregon. He just came from Oregon to coach the Rams. And he sat me down right when he got hired. He said, "Hey, what would you think about going and doing this? I really want you to go over there and just get to play. You haven't really played in a couple of years because you've been, back up and not on the field." And I said, I told him if it didn't hurt my status with the team, missing mini camps, missing, new installation of this new program he's going to install. If it didn't hurt me, if you could tell me it's not going to hurt me in that area, I'll gladly do it. I would love to go play. But I told him I did not want to miss stuff going on with my team here to go do that over there, because in the end, I may not be as prepared as I could going back to training camp with the Rams. But he said, no, you're good. Just go do it. Get the reps, shake the dust off. And I'm glad I did. It was a great experience. We actually had training camp, all the teams. There were 6 teams that first year. London, Scotland, Barcelona, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Dusseldorf. Yeah, those were the teams. Yeah, there wasn't a Berlin team yet. Anyway, all those teams went to training camp in Europe. Not Europe, in Atlanta before we went to Europe. So it was a kind of a month spent in Atlanta practicing, and then practicing against these other teams, and got to know a lot of the guys. There was a lot of good players over there that ended up having big careers in the NFL, and it was a lot of fun. I'm talking in circles now, but it was a good experience. Got to see parts of the world I'd never probably go to otherwise. Like, had some great cities. Some stories about not so much fun, being away from home that long and a few months and stuck in a hotel that whole time, and which wasn't a bad thing, but you start to miss home after a while, and living.
We still have that now. We have a lot of American students who are NCAA players who come over and do their masters at Durham University, where I work in Maryland. One of the things that they really struggle with is the transition of being in a different country and away from home. Yeah. And I can relate. I have empathy with them because I did the same thing at 18. Come to the States, and that it can affect your performance massively if you don't manage to work that out a little bit. Right. So an incredible career. And then what I guess when we're talking about the NFL Europe, we also have now NFL being in London. We have so many games now in London, which is amazing. And I even got to take the wife to watch the Pats versus the Rams. And I think that was one of the early games that came over.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I never got to go over and do that, but I know after the NFL Europe there, after that league, I think it lasted 4 or 5 years, and then they kind of disbanded. I think that's when they started, playing a regular season game over in London every year. And now they do 2 or 3 or 4. They have a bunch of them going.
Maybe up to 6 last year, James.
Oh wow!
It was it's really good. And there's been talk there was talk that there was going to be a franchise move over to London because it was there's so many people want to go and watch it, and it was 90,000 seater stadium, Wembley, sold out every game, which is incredible.
That's great. I mean, it's amazing to me. We went over there, and some cities had higher attendance than others. London seemed like there was a lot of interest. The German cities were really, really big crowds. I guess it's from the military bases over there, and a lot of Americans, and there were some big crowds. A place like Amsterdam, they were kind of indifferent about it. Barcelona, they were indifferent. They were just, I think the USFL was over there in the past. They had some European and American teams, and they had some good crowds, I know, in a lot of the cities. I don't know if people were kind of felt burned by the league leaving, and they hadn't gotten back into it yet. But there was a lot of interest, a lot more than I thought there would be over there, in American football.
Yeah, it's such a big sport, and we have Sky Sports over here, which is your equivalent to ESPN and Fox, and they've actually just launched a Sky American channel purely for American sports. So we're getting most of the basketball, most of the American football, and quite a lot of baseball as well. So I'm right at home. I get to watch the Atlanta Braves play baseball. I get to watch the Pats play American football. I never really picked the basketball team. I should go with the Jazz, shouldn't I? Just to kind of
go for Utah. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, what we should do is we should talk a little bit about the Super Bowl this weekend, because that's one of the reasons why I thought it'd be great to have you on. And especially within your role as quarterback, you've got two guys at either end of the spectrum in terms of age. You've got TB12, who's got 6 rings, and you've got Mahomes, who is, I guess, the young kid on the block, but he's already been there and done it. How do you see that going?
Yeah, Mahomes is incredible. He's incredible to watch. Brady is too, but in a different way. I mean, they're totally different types of quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes has all the physical wow factor from everything you could imagine. Tom Brady, not so much. He does it in a different way. But what they both have is this mental processing skill where they're one step ahead of you all the time. And that's, I've talked to people over the years, and I've been in the situation where I was on a team trying to make the roster, and I wasn't the biggest guy, strongest guy, fastest guy, didn't have the strongest arm, but I beat out a guy who was bigger, stronger, faster than me. I beat him out for that spot. And because of the the mental processing and the knowing your offense and knowing where to go with the football and understanding what the defense is doing and getting the ball out of your hand on time, which is one thing that Tom Brady does and he's always done. And it's the most important thing for a quarterback, that having that accuracy that comes from knowing where to go with the football, always going to the right spot and throwing it on time and being smart enough to realize what's going on. Now you add that with Patrick Mahomes' physical ability, he's unbelievable.
Yeah. And his creativity as a quarterback, his ability to see the pass, the little shovel pass, which is not necessarily in any textbook, but he just sees so much more in the game than other quarterbacks that I've seen.
Right. He's got it all, and he's got such a maturity. Like, usually you'll see a young quarterback struggle for years before they get that level of maturity to be aware enough about all that stuff. And he hit the ground running right away. He's pretty incredible.
Yeah, so we've got two big quarterbacks, the young, creative, exciting, fun one, and the GOAT, who maybe doesn't run as much but gets the job done. I guess from your point of view, you talked about the mental strength of Tom Brady there. Is that something that you need to really work on as a young player? So let's say any young player in sport who's watching this right now and they want to go to the next level. How do you work on that, Jamie? Is it something that you can every day work on, or is it just natural? What do you think?
Part of it, there's a natural, immeasurable intangibility there that some people just get it. Some people just get it. Some people don't. But that's not the end all be all. There is also, and I've told quarterbacks I've coached for years and my own kids, and you have to know what you're doing. You can go lift all the weights you want. You can go run and be Mr. Hard Worker guy. That's only going to get you so far. Everybody can throw the football as well as you, no matter how good you think you are. It's that knowing what you're doing and studying your offense and understanding your protections and understanding your route adjustments versus different coverage and understanding where I'm going to go with the ball. And I heard someone talking about Tom Brady, and the other day on some sports channel, but they summed it up perfectly. They said he has the ability, and the great ones have the ability to make it simple. They know the game so well, they're not overwhelmed by it. He's looking at He's looking at one guy on the field. He recognizes the coverage. He sees what the defense is doing. Now he's just reading one guy. He's reading one linebacker. If this linebacker turns his head that way, he knows where he's going with the ball. If the linebacker turns his head the other way, he knows where he's going with the ball, and it's the right decision. So it's when you can get to that level of mastering the knowledge, and you don't have to be the smartest guy in the world, because I'm not, but that was one of my things I was able to do, is just know things inside and out, and be able to have that confidence and that knowledge and that decision-making ability to where you're making the right decision every time. It's, he makes it look easy. Brady makes it look easy because of that. And you watch him run, you watch him throw, it's me and you. I'm 51 years old, and I think I can run faster than him and probably throw harder than him, but that's not what it's about. He's mastered the game, in that aspect.
Yeah, I always remember can you remember the movie Cool Runnings about the Jamaican bobsled team that went?
Yeah.
I always remember, and I visualized the picture of the guy who was sat in the bath, remembering all of the turns.
Yeah.
And that's the mental process that you need to go through, and especially in your position, and you certainly know better than I do, but seeing what's in front of you and seeing the moves and seeing the space must be an incredible process to go through.
Exactly. And it isn't easy. I mean, it takes a lot of work in its own right. It's not weight room work, but there's different types of work, and they're just as hard. When you do have that, like I just said, when you do have that knowledge and that confidence in what you know, it slows the game down, and it slows, because this game, especially at the NFL level, is so complicated. If you're trying to figure out what a defense is doing, you're trying to figure out what your offensive line is doing, you're trying to communicate to your receivers, you're all in like a 10-second time frame, play after play. When you have that mastered, everything gets simpler. And then when it gets simple, then it's just, you're out there playing catch with people, which is,
and I guess
pretty awesome.
I guess the more you think about it, the longer it takes, the more you're picking yourself up off the floor.
And you're overwhelmed. It's easy to get overwhelmed. And when things, like in any sport, when you get momentum going against you and you're overwhelmed and you just can't recover, you're done. I mean, you're done. That's why you see a player every once in a while, even the great ones will have a bad game and just can't pull out of it. It's something will overwhelm you and overcome all that stuff, and you can't recover from it.
I was going to ask you about Aaron Rodgers with that, and seeing that you've talked about being overcome, and I watched last week's game, and I thought from the get-go, when Brady went down and scored early doors, I actually thought that the Pack just felt as if they were playing under a lot of pressure for the whole game. And I think that almost felt like Aaron Rodgers, not necessarily made some errors, because I think Aaron Rodgers is a phenomenal quarterback. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter what I think, because he is a phenomenal quarterback. But I just don't think they were as good as what they have been for the rest of the season last week.
Maybe they hadn't. Maybe something happened like that. Maybe there was some mental thing going on. The other aspect that makes this all tricky is, as the saying is, those other guys are getting paid too. Yeah. That defense from the Bucs is pretty awesome. Their defensive line is pretty phenomenal. They've got a stout front. They've got some good players in the linebacking core. They're getting paid too, and they're trying to do the same thing you're trying to do, outsmart you. And so, I mean, sometimes you can't win them all.
Yeah, and especially towards the end of the game, I mean, Brady made probably 3 poor passes for him. Mm-hmm. Definitely 2 poor ones. One maybe you could get away with, but yeah, you're right. It was a big team effort from the Bucs last week.
Yeah. I guess it's still a team game, so it's there's always that. That's what drives you nuts about trying to predict these games, and you think you got an answer, and then something weird happens and throws a wrench into it.
But yeah, it was right, Jamie. I know you're really busy and you've got to shoot. I've got one last question for you before you go. Yeah. Super Bowl on Sunday. It's late. It's late in the UK. I'll be up watching it till 3 or 4 in the morning. I'll pack the wife and child off to bed, which is great. Who's going to win?
I got to pick the Chiefs.
Okay.
I got to pick the Chiefs. I can't pick against Mahomes, and I also am rooting for the Chiefs. Well, it's not the Patriots. It's Tom Brady, but it's not the Patriots, so I'm not going to offend you. But I did play against the Patriots in that Super Bowl, and there was a little Spygate thing going on that we're still not recovered from. So I gotta go against Tom Brady.
There's a lot of few issues with the Pats over the years, isn't there? let's have that conversation.
Hey, they're trying.
Yeah, they are. And
How
I
about
guess
you?
everybody is, isn't there? They're just trying to kind of get through it. My thoughts are, I actually thought Green Bay would be there, and I thought Aaron Rodgers would do it. I think they've had a phenomenal season. I was quite surprised that Brady and the Bucs went up there and won. It's a really difficult one because I've always put my money on TB12 because he's just phenomenal. And how do you back against him?
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, he's so exciting to watch. He can score from anywhere. He's dangerous. And Kansas City, without him, are still a pretty good side. But with him, yeah, I think maybe 3 points, maybe 7. I think it's going to be a tight game. I hope it's a high-scoring game. I hope Brady comes out and scores early because that will allow Patrick Mahomes to run freely and go crazy. And I just hope it's a great game.
Yeah, me too. In the end, it doesn't affect me if either team wins, but I like to see a great game, and I'll probably be rooting for the Chiefs.
Jamie, it's been great catching up. We need to do this a little bit more, and especially the next time you're in the UK, we need to get you to Durham University and come and see some of the guys there and see what we do.
Nice, yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, man. It's good to see you.
You take care. Speak soon, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. You're welcome. Bye.